please share your insight on the future of aviation market?
Aviation market in recent years is changing very fast. In Europe, there's a lot of airlines which are far to reach economical stability, and therefore, actually, we're expecting more and more European airlines will vanish from the market. At the same time, we see that low-cost airlines who did a huge impact on aviation development already also shifting their strategies from regional airports to the hubs, to the central airports. Actually, they're searching for like a sharks for new markets, and traditional airlines are put in a more and more stress within that. So, by this reason, we expect first increase of connectivity from regional airports. It's already happening. That's hub airports and big national airports are suffering a lack of capacity, and that situation will continue because there's quite tight regulation for airlines and airports to benefit from from public money, and the impact of lack of capacity also will do some share of the problems in aviation. Moreover, we see in Europe quite impressive development of the road and rail network. And as we all need to be environmental friendly, we need to think more about our planet and the environment we're living on. It's quite clear that short distance flights will disappear. And in the future they will be replaced or by speed trains or by different modes of transports. And even today there's some movements which promoting that flying is not carbon friendly an action, especially in Scandinavia and many other countries. And that also will give an impact on aviation. Then we need to think about technologies involved in aviation. Where are the bottlenecks in infrastructure? So airports, on which side of an airport? Either check-in bottleneck, or security, or gate locations, or runway capacity is a bottleneck. So those elements also will change in the further. So new technologies like artificial intelligence, like biometric scannings, global data analysis will need to release more capacity on existing infrastructure. And that's actually the path we are going on. The second issue is also related to the labor force. Labor force becoming more and more expensive, so we need to develop our procedures, our systems less dependent from human factors. So less humans need to be involved in aviation. That's true. Unless you are building those technologies, unless you are enough educated to be over these systems, you know how to monitor how to develop those systems, and that's give an impact that positions like a check-in agents or even a ground handling staff in the future will definitely reduce. Again, new aircrafts coming to the market, and aircrafts also becoming more fuel efficient, and new aircrafts with less passenger seats can fly wider distances. What does it mean? It means as we have very intensive connectivity in short and medium connection routes, these new aircraft types will develop this connectivity on long haul, and in next decades long haul market also will suffer significant changes. And that also shows that a project like Airbus 380s is not so successful because this concept is shifting to point-to-point traffic less than development of the hub. Nevertheless, we know these huge hubs like Dubai, like Turkey is building a hub, like China, Beijing is building a multi-hub airport system. Those will be in place, but again, regional cities will develop, regional hubs will develop, and regional transit traffic will develop. So, it is a good question how machines can substitute a human force, labor force in aviation industry, at airports, at airlines. And that's already is happening. Labor force costs per unit increasing from year to year, and this resource becoming quite expensive. From another side, ticket prices we are buying from the internet, those are becoming cheap and cheap, and travelers don't need an intermediate like a travel agent, like additional knowledge. Everything is available at the internet, and very basic user can select cheapest flight, more efficient route, and that's also something about social responsibility. So how to shift from labor-intensive industry to intellect-intensive industry, and that is the challenge for next decades in aviation. Social responsibility in this manner means that those heavy-duty jobs, those difficult jobs, will be replaced by knowledge-based jobs. And actually, that's the one side of the knowledge that we need to go to universities. We need to study. We need to learn new things, and we always need to develop ourselves, and we need to develop our technologies.
Okay, thank you very much. And what would you say about the European Union's strategy for corporate social responsibility nowadays?
European Union is making a lot of efforts to reduce the carbon footprint, and aviation is one of the most, let's say, convenient subject for testing of those strategies, because there's not so many players within the industry. There is a lot of fuel consumption per one aircraft, and very easy to measure, and very easy to make some regulatory efforts. From another side, airlines are within heavy competition, and they focus it mainly not to reduce a footprint, but reduce consumption of fuel, which will affect footprint in result. That's for designers and manufacturers of the aircraft are working hard to develop more efficient engines, aircrafts with more efficiency calculated per seat, and that's how social responsibility can be developed. Frankly, we are not ready to reduce our demands for comfort, for well-being, to compare with the environment. So we still have high demands, and those demands are growing. We need to just think smart. We need to think how to make money from our waste, how to reduce our waste, and how to make efficient our operations and procedures. And in the result, the costs will be lower, and economics will lead to social responsibility respect to the environment.
Thank you. And what kind of economic impact aviation has on the country and on the region?
Very good question. In ancient times, first driver for the trade was the camels, Silk Road. So it took about half a year to travel from ancient time to Venus. and those goods was very expensive and very, very unique. So that's the first. Then ships came into place, sea routes, international trade was, and those big cities were built across the lakes connected to the sea, close to the major sea routes. Then technology developed and trains came into the game, and the country developed in inland areas, and those big cities was developed. A very good example is how the United States did develop the regions across the train lines, because that is how the international trade is built. Nowadays, the same role belongs to the aviation, because right now, within 10 hours, you can fly from Moscow to Shanghai or Beijing, and within 10 hours, you can deliver goods from a factory from Amsterdam to the Dushanbe or New York. So that creates a speed of economics, that creates exchange of goods, that creates a market, and that creates well-being of the human beings. At the same time, there is a very precise methodology how it's measured. So first is a direct impact. So this is a airlines sales, airline consumption, so fuel, airports charges, etc. Then is a indirect impact, which creates around these areas. It's like a cargo agents, commercial sales around it, everything indirect, which also but is very tight with aviation, like a training, education, for pilot training. So those are indirect economy, and that's also is a very big share. There is a catalytic effect. For example, if people are traveling between Brussels and Riga on a frequent basis, they also decide to bring with them investments. And there is a direct relation between foreign and direct investments and aviation connectivity. So investments means new job, which are not related to aviation at all, but it's depend from aviation. And it's especially well, you can observe this from the regional airports, from small airports, when international companies is searching for their business locations close to the centers, but out of these expensive areas. Their main requirements is to provide connectivity. So that is the economic impact of aviation in a global economy. Without aviation, we would suffer like a century back.
Please give us your comments on aviation cargo impact on a global economic development.
Movement of goods is a very significant for international trade, and it's a very interesting that aviation cargo consists about 30% of all global cargo, but by value it is more than 80% of the all cargoes worldwide, that's including crude oil and this kind of goods. So this means aviation cargoes are very valuable goods with a very high added value, and those areas which are producing those kind of cargoes definitely are benefiting from higher well-being and higher economical development. Very obvious samples like Amsterdam, for example, where there are huge pharmaceutical centers, and they're developing a lot of cargo routes which are going out from the Europe, and they can also ignite inbound cargo, because for economical reasons cargo need to be loaded in both directions normally. And just to note, to compare cargo trades between Europe and China, for example, there's from Europe going out 1 unit of cargo, from China going out 2 units of cargo. That means about 50% of all aircraft in between Europe and China flying on empty without a cargo. Of course, they're developing some difficult routes, including third countries, third regions, to reduce those empty loads. But nevertheless, it's very, very important to develop high-value production, which also creates and initiate aviation networks.
Thank you so much. Thank you.